right. Hey, so today we are very pleased to have a special guest with us. It's Reverend Michael J.S. Carter, who is a ET experiencer and ordained minister, as well as writing several books in the field, including Ancient Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible, A New World, If You Can Take It, God, Extraterrestrials, and the Evolution of Human Consciousness, and Initiation, the Spiritual Transformation of the Experiencer, a Guide for Contact Experiencers. So yeah, without further ado, let's get Michael in here and we'll have a chat.
Okay, got it.
Cool. So okay, well, let's get into this. So we I guess we really wanted to talk about UFO experiences, or I guess not so much UFO necessarily, but alien experiences, or whatever. I don't know what you like to call yours. Myself, I've seen a UFO, but I didn't see it directly. So it's sort of weird. Like, it's like, well, I saw the lights. I saw the lights and shadows. That's all I saw. But yeah, there's a lot of weird things going on, and you know, when you have people who say, well, I've never seen it, so it's obviously fake. Well, what does that say to all of those millions of us who have seen something? And it's quite disrespectful, I think. And you can't just call a million people crazy. Like, no, that's not okay. So so I want to hear your story, your stories, I guess, if you've seen multiple things.
I just wanted to comment on, you know, you know, again, and I understand why people don't. I don't argue with people about it. I don't feel the need to have to prove it, because for those who do believe, no amount of evidence is necessary, and for those who don't believe, no amount of evidence is ever going to be enough. And I know that if people don't want to see it, because that means you have to change your worldview, you have to change your paradigm, and people don't like that. It makes them uncomfortable. I grew up in the Baptist tradition. I did not believe in UFOs. I just started watching Star Trek maybe about 5 years ago. I drank the Kool-Aid as far as, you know, the theology I was presented with. I remember growing up in Baltimore, and a gentleman said to me, we were downtown hanging out, and a guy, well, I don't know if he was a gentleman, we were really young. And he said to me, we were nowhere near gentlemen. But he said to me, I remember it. I remember him saying, you don't believe in life on other planets? And he seemed so surprised when I said I didn't. So maybe I looked or sounded more open than I was. And he said, why not? What did I say? Because it's not in the Bible. What a difference 30, 40 years makes. So for my thing, I was on this path. I was on this path where I was reading existentialist philosophy and reading about the occult and psychic experiences. I was just reading all this stuff that was out of the box. So I was already on this path, but at the same time, I was drinking and drugging and sexing because I was in the theater. So I was living a fast life, but I was still being pulled in this other direction. I left the Christianity of my childhood. I don't consider myself a Christian now, at least not the way Orthodox Christianity is. And so I was on this journey. And, you know, I was looking for the historical Jesus. I was reading everything I could. I didn't celebrate Christmas. Part of that was because my first wife was Jewish. We celebrated Hanukkah. And I was like, well, Jesus wasn't born on December 25th. And I was just picking it apart. I was angry too. So I went to vacation. I went on vacation to Cancun for a week with my girlfriend at the time, who later became my first wife. And we went to the Yucatan just to see the pyramids, the Mayan pyramids. We went to Chichen Itza and Tulum. And just learning about, wow, where were they getting this information and how this astrological precision, and it was really fascinating. And I came back home. That was December 28, 1989. And we had been invited to a party. She didn't want to go. It was cold. It was December 28th. We got to JFK. I was tired, but I wanted to kind of show off my tan. I wanted to gloat. I just came back from 85, 90 degrees. These people were freezing their asses off.
Yeah.
So I went. She said, you go, I'm going to unpack. So I went. It was in Hell's Kitchen in Times Square. And, no alcoholic beverages were even there. I'm a deviled egg freak, so I probably overdid that. And people, ooh, you look great. Ooh, look how you're so dark and darker, and your hair. And I was eating it up. And then I said, boy, I got to go, because I really was starting to get tired. Caught the subway back home. And I don't know to this day, Ken, I don't know whether I sensed someone in the room. I sleep on my stomach, usually my side. I don't know. But when I turned around, and at the edge of my bed, and Sandy, my girlfriend at the time, would not wake up. The backstory to that is, when I wrote the book, The Spiritual Transformation of the Experiencer, I sent her a copy in August. And it was interesting because she said, I read your book. It was a quick read. And she said, I remember that night. She said, I remembered, I've never seen you as scared as you were. And she said, I remember these little people, like shadowy people in the room. She said, but for some reason I couldn't stay up. My mind just said, why don't you go to sleep?
Oh, wow.
And yeah. And there was, this is the being, but, this is the being. Okay. But he didn't have the robe on. I had the artist make him a Buddha. Right. He had on but his head was like that, but it was more curved.
Oh yeah.
Like this part was out more. And he was silver. Well, he had a silver jumpsuit on, I told a friend of mine the other day, she said, it sounds like a NASCAR suit, but it was with this tunic up here. It looked like Reynolds wrap. It looked like he had on a suit, I guess it's a he, made of Reynolds wrap. And he was about 4 feet tall, real short. And I thought I was going to have a heart attack. And around him was this blue light, like the blue behind you, maybe a little lighter, and a white light above. My room was lit up like Times Square. This was in the Excelsior Hotel. It's still there, 45 West 81st Street, between Columbus and Central Park West, right across the street from the planetarium. Wasn't in some rural wooded area.
Right.
And so my heart was like, whoa. And she wouldn't wake up. And we just stared at each other he had those eyes. And I pulled the covers up over my head and got into a fetal position. I mean, that's how bad it was. And we're on the 15th floor, and I heard this whoosh, whoosh, like this wind. It was very strange. And all of a sudden, the temperature changed. Like I felt like I was outside. And it was cold. I pulled the covers down. Nobody was there. Like nothing ever happened.
So you saw him for like a couple of seconds, and before you pulled
that. We stared, because I was in, your nervous system is flooded. It's flight or at least 5-10 seconds. Who knows? I don't know. It seemed long. I mean,
I guess you can't really tell when you're sitting there frozen.
Well, and your mind is trying to, is this real? Is this not? You overload.
Right.
I woke her up. I told her about it. I was scared. And, she's an understanding woman, deeply spiritual woman. So she believed me, but she said, how can I wrap my mind around this? And
Mhm.
so I told an astrologer friend of mine about it, because they started coming twice a month. They started coming full moon and new moon for about 8 months, maybe.
Oh,
Yeah, these beings. I saw other beings. I have them here. I had an artist make me, so I'll
okay.
show them as they come.
Okay. So just let me stop you there. So these
Yeah,
guys, would you call this guy a gray, or do you have a name
he
for him?
wasn't gray. He was white. But they're different. But they're different races. They're different species of grays. Some of
Yeah.
them are gray. Some of them are dark gray. Some of them. So maybe. But
Okay.
his head was bigger.
Yeah.
Like
So
the
he's
gray
got
you
the
see on Whitney.
elongated skull.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So
That
this
was
guy comes in the hotel, and then 2 weeks later he shows up. And where are you there? You're at home this
2
time?
weeks later. There are more of them.
Okay.
Like
And you're
2 or
at your
3.
house now?
I'm at my house. She's always at work because she worked nights. But this time they would paralyze me.
Oh.
Now, in between that time, I talked to an astrologer friend of mine who's gone, Donna Cunningham, and she said, "Oh my God," she said, "What did they look like?" And we're trying to tell her. She said, "Catch the subway down when you get a chance. Go down to the East Village. Go down to like Avenue A or B." And she said, "You're going to see a big wall there. There's a mural. Watch the mural." She told me what street it was on. Tell me if they look like that. And sure enough, when I went there, some artist had, instead of graffiti, they had painted a picture of grays.
Oh yeah.
So I told her, I said, that's them. That is them. They started coming every full and new moon. Only this time they would paralyze me, and they would show me pictures. Didn't talk.
Right.
They showed me a picture of me in a future time. I mean, like, 20th century. I was speaking to an audience with this suit on that I actually own. I didn't own it then. And they showed me a picture of. It came to me that it was me as a monk, with the rope belt and the little, you know what I'm saying, bald spot
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Yeah. Which explains some things to me, because I always loved religion. When I came out of my mother's womb, it was something about, I felt comfortable around all the religions. So go on, you were going to ask me
So
something.
okay. So do you feel like that was sort of like a vision of what you would become, sort of almost look like what you're doing now, kind of?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Great question. And the only time they ever really hurt me was one time I was paralyzed and I was on my stomach and I wanted to turn around, but I couldn't move. And I felt them stick something right, it was excruciating, right here in the stem, that little hollow between your neck and your skull.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that was pain.
Like a needle?
Yeah. And it's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And I talked to a friend of mine and he said, you can get to someone's pituitary gland that way. I don't know if that's true. I said, there's got to be an easier way, because I was telling him about what happened. I told my friend Donna Cunningham about it. The astrologer, she comes up with, she said, "You know what, Michael, this is going to sound stupid, but you need to talk to them. You need to set some." I was like, "What are you saying?" She said,
Yeah.
"Just talk to them. They're probably in the room now. They hear you, but otherwise," she said, "Are you going to keep going through these sleepless nights? Are you still going to keep," because I was a wreck, "You're going to keep going through this? You can't keep going through this. You can't sustain this." One day I did. I remember my girlfriend came home, Sandy. She said, "I couldn't believe it. You were yelling up at the ceiling in your underwear. I don't know who you were talking to." She said, "I thought you were crazy." But I remember she walked right by me. The next time they came, almost the same scenario. I was paralyzed, and they showed me in my mind's eye a syringe. I felt a little it's like someone who takes your blood and you don't even feel it. I love when that happens because I
Yeah.
give blood, and you know how it feels when they can't find it. Was
Oh yeah.
yeah, and so and then they were gone, and I interpreted that as they listened to me. They showed me what they did, and it was very gentle. In the meantime, I need to go to a mental health professional because I couldn't sleep. I wasn't sleeping at night. I sleep better now, but even now, it's like a little trauma. I won't go to sleep. I leave the light on until the last minute. Like the light's not going to keep them from coming, but for me, it does. It comforts me.
Yeah.
So I went to this place called this bookstore. What was it called? It was next to it was called the Open Center. And I went to the UFO section. And I pulled stuff off the shelves. I went to the cashier. I remember him because this was way before dreadlocks even came in style. He was bald up here, but he had dreadlocks. He was a very strange looking man. And it was like I was buying condoms for the first time. I wouldn't even look at him. And he looked at me. He said, "You don't look good, man." I said, "Okay." He said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "These books." He said, "Is this for real? Or is this just a hobby?" And I said, "It's for real." And he said, "Okay." And he rang him up and he gave me a card. He wrote a number on the back of it. He said, "Here, call that number." And what it was a support group for people like me who had experiences. It was a lifesaver, game changer.
Yeah.
And I met people there who they didn't feel like it was a negative thing. It was scary, it was traumatic, but their life was starting to change. Their spirituality became deeper, just something had shifted. And I was having that, but I was still, who do you tell that to?
Yeah.
So I bought a book called Encounters by Dr. Edith Fiore. You can still get it, it's over there. It was about experiences. She's a hypnotherapist. But in the back, it had all these health professionals from different states.
Oh, cool.
So I opened up the book. There were two people, Jean Mundy, who I picked. She was in New York. There was a woman named Aphrodite Claymore, who I hear is a really good person, therapist or what have you. But Aphrodite, I was so fragile. That's not the name I needed.
Right.
Named,
too new age.
Yeah.
For you at that time.
Yes. It was
okay.
far out, man. So Jean Mundy regressed me. I still have her tapes.
It's like, let's have one paradigm shift at a time, please.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
No, you put it perfectly. And she helped me see that. She said, "It's up to you how you want to interpret this, but these are real." I didn't think I left my room, but under hypnosis, she said I was on. I listened to it. I was on a ship on a table. That must have been the time when I felt like I was outside.
Oh yeah.
And so later on, years later, Bud Hopkins regressed me. Bud was very good, and Bud and I were friends, but not Bud. Bud and I were friends. Period. His group was people who were traumatized, and say they thought we were crazy because they had had probes and sperm taken and ovum. They were flipped out.
Right.
Our group, I guess to them was like kumbaya, tree huggers or something.
Okay. Yeah.
We would get together twice a year. It was tense, but we would get together.
So, okay, can I get some questions on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so the group that you were in was sort of tame in comparison to the experiences of Bud's other group. That's what you're saying? And
Yeah, Bud's group was that these were evil people that, there was nefarious, there was no gray. It was just,
right.
they're wrong.
Yeah. Okay. So
All of
that
them
was
wrong.
okay, and that was the experience of the people in that group.
Yeah, which
the
was
most part.
valid,
Yeah.
but you can't say that's for everybody.
Right. So, so with this support group that you were in, is there like a national group or something, or was it
No, it was
something just
called
in New York?
Space. It was called Space, SPACE. I forget the acronym, but Harold Eglin, who ran the group, I'm still friends with him. He's on Facebook. He had been doing this for years.
Okay.
And so
Is that something that people can still get into?
No, the group broke up.
Okay.
The group broke up. Some people died. Harold, he kept it going as long as he could. Because I had moved from New York years ago, they were still meeting, but they don't meet anymore.
Okay.
But he was doing this for a long time. He was friendly with Bud and John Mack, and
Okay.
he had these connections.
Okay. So so far, what I'm getting is that you had almost a medical type of experience with the back of your neck, and you felt like they were, was that related to your being sort of frozen or incapacitated?
No. Well, it was I was paralyzed, but I started with the more they came, things would happen. I don't know if they paralyzed me to keep me from hurting them or hurting myself or whatever, but I would be paralyzed. But then sometimes they would touch me and I would feel like electricity was going through me. And a lot of times I felt a lot of electricity around my throat. Which was, I guess they were changing whatever they were doing. It was changing me physiologically. I was getting by on less sleep. My hair and nails grew really, really quickly. I can't explain it. I guess they would call it downloads, but I didn't feel downloaded. I just felt more intelligent. But what I did feel was my heart open. That's the only way I can put it. That I felt more, I was risking being more vulnerable. I felt more in touch. I felt this love.
Okay.
And I just, I felt more intelligent, and I started running to look at religion. Because my mindset was, if they came to me in December 28th, 1989, that means they were probably here in December of 5,000 years ago. I mean, I started thinking, and I'm not a big nuts and bolts person. I mean, it's nice. My mind just doesn't work that way. Propulsion systems, back engineering, I don't care about that. I care about, how do I live now?
Right.
That I've seen this.
Right.
So then I started getting different visits. This person came, this reptilian.
Oh, okay.
Saw them twice. Big, muscular, walked through my wall at the hotel, touched me, put a claw on me, had a tank top on, looked like a tank top, huge, had a tail, heart attack city. Easy for him to say, don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. Walked and left right through the wall. He, it was a he because his voice sounded masculine in my head. His mouth didn't move.
Oh, okay. And how tall was he?
He was almost as tall as my ceiling. He had to be almost 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
These people are big, except for the little one.
The first guys were like 4 feet.
Yeah,
something.
yeah, like kids.
Yeah.
This brother had his pupils went like that. What is that, vertical? His pupils like a cat.
Okay, yeah.
His pupil, he was gray-green, scaly, like an alligator skin. But he had arms, legs, but he had a tail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was he wearing, he was wearing the tank top?
It looked like a white beater. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Any pants or anything, or just a one suit, or?
No. I just saw, all I noticed was that, because I was
Right.
on my bed looking like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
So, but I'm a little more, I mean, that freaked me out, but I'm, you know, I'm trying, I'm living my life. Okay. I'm still in therapy. I'm living my life. I was going to therapy for some family dysfunctional stuff, but I told my therapist about this. Whether he believed me or not, I don't know, but he was very cool. And he didn't treat me like I was crazy. He said, okay, you have mystical. That kept me grounded.
Yeah.
So I started, when I read these books, then I ran into Dr. Barry Downing. He was like my mentor in the sense of, wow, there's another minister who wrote about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Barry and I became friends. We're still friends. We met. He came down here to North Carolina several years ago. He and his wife, we met. We see things a little differently because he still held on to his traditional Christian faith. I haven't, in the sense of, I don't need a savior, that kind of thing. But,
Right.
and then I started reading Barry, Dr. Virginia Brasington, a woman from Asheville, North Carolina. She's a minister. She wrote a book. Mars K. Jessup, who died under mysterious circumstances in the 50s, he wrote a book on UFOs and the Bible. A couple people.
Yeah, there's about 7 or 8 other guys who've done similar
The
stuff.
only difference is if they had experiences, they never talked about it. C.L. Turnage, a woman I met, well, I never met her, but we were this was before we would keep in touch. She wrote a book on, it was called The Bible, an Extraterrestrial Transmission. She was working with, she was just doing the work of Zachariah Sitchin. I met Zachariah Sitchin. He lived like 3 blocks from me on the Upper West Side of New York City. Yeah, we met in a Burger King. And because I wanted to know more about Jesus in this, but he was Jewish, so Jesus wasn't where his head was going to be at. But, you know, he was talking about ancient Samaria and that kind of thing. So I still wouldn't come out of the closet about my experiences, but I started getting these gigs speaking at conferences, but I would never come out and say my thing, but I would do my research. You know, I read, you know, the Apocryphal Old Testament, you know, the Book of Jubilees, the Watchers, and, you know, the Book of Enoch, and, you know, Josephus, and the Aramaic translation of the Bible. So I was getting this information. I was like, my God.
Okay, so you were a minister at the time when while you're doing all this research, and so you're in a kind of a mainstream Christian situation.
Actually, I wasn't. Actually, I had left the Baptist tradition because I was reading all this existential stuff. I was reading about psychic phenomena and all that. I was with the Unitarian Church, which is a very left-brain liberal church, but it was a growth period. And I was a chaplain at a hospital at the time as well.
Okay.
And I was having these experiences. All of a sudden I had to study Reiki. All of a sudden I had to study energy healing. I'm sure they were prompting me. Not once did they tell me this is what you had to do, but when I started seeing them, it was like throwing cold water in my face. The drinking and the drugging and the sexing stopped. I mean, of course, now I have a beard, but I wasn't the party guy I was then. It just stopped. And I was on this path, but I wasn't telling anybody about my experiences.
Right. So that's an interesting thing to me, is that where we get our ideas from, right, is like, you know, in the Christian tradition, we say that the Holy Spirit will give you ideas or inspire you with various ideas, and I mean that ties in a lot with where Christianity kind of thinks the Bible came from, and many other things like that. And so I wonder if there's something out there, regardless of how we describe him, it, she, whatever. It seems like these various traditions have this similar idea that you can receive ideas psychically, or, you know, I mean,
Yeah,
essentially, that's what the Holy Spirit is a psychic communication, and prophecy, and even healing and things like that in the traditional Christian sense are very, very much in line with the same way that the Reiki traditions and the ESP and the psychics and things like that are presenting things, just with different lingo around it
yes.
and different assumptions and stuff like that. So do you think that, is it reasonable to kind of conclude that, since you've sort of been on both ends of that receiving end, do you think that it was this sort of the same group of people or whatever who have been working in that field all along?
Are
Like,
you
who's
talking
sending
about?
you the messages, you know?
I don't know if they're the same because I've had different, as we go on, I've seen two other races, three other races who I have represented
Okay.
here,
And
but
they
it
have
is
different
coming.
things to say?
Well, no, it's just that there were different races visiting me,
Mhm.
and so what, there's the old adage alleged to Jesus that by their fruits you shall know them.
Right.
And so people, who say they are evil or what have you, I can say maybe the ones who visited you, but I haven't had that experience. And it
Right.
reminds me of when Jesus says, if you don't believe me, just look at the works that I do. If you don't believe what I'm saying, just believe the works that I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's how I just rationalize that. I'm doing a mission of spreading love, of trying to, make the world a better place, make myself a better person. So even if people say, "Well, I don't believe your story," fine.
Mhm.
But look at the way I'm living my life. You don't
Right.
have to do, because there are people I know who are deeply spiritual people who've never had experiences like this. You
Right.
don't need these things to make you that way. They just expedited my growth.
Right. So, but all in all, your experiences and the beings that were involved in them have been a positive impact on heading your life into a
Right.
positive direction.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And I leave open people who say, "Well, that didn't happen to me." That was one of the reasons I came out of the closet, as you were, because I didn't want to be stereotyped,
Mm.
for all the obvious reasons. But that's what human beings do. It's almost like a mental laziness. What do the aliens want? I don't like that word. I'm just quoting.
Yeah.
Which ones are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know,
What do people want?
right?
What what
What
do
people are you
women
talking about?
want?
Yeah. And so that was my whole point. And so when I started reading and studying and growing, and visitations were coming, when it was time for my um, master's thesis, that's what alien scriptures was.
Mm.
And I was very fortunate, even though I went to one of the top seminaries in the country. I went to Union Theological Seminary in New York. They could have easily said, "Young man, you are not graduating from here writing that kind of tripe."
Yeah.
But they embraced it. They encouraged it. And I used that as the first book. So some years went by. And I would have visitations, but they started to be few and far between. A couple of days before 9/11, I had a visit. I went up to Boston to do an anti-racism training. I had a visit in my room, so they know where I am always. So several years went by. And then the publisher, Blue Star Publications, Barbara DeBolt, I don't even know if she's still alive, a little mom and pop publisher in Arizona, she said, "You got to put your big boy pants on and tell people what's happening to you."
Mm.
So I did at that time. And I started getting You know, I was on Shirley MacLaine's show. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is, before I show you the other people I've seen, I never asked for this consciously.
Mhm.
I was an actor in New York. I got out of that. I didn't like the show business, you know, the superficiality of it. I wanted to serve. So I left. I went to seminary, which is something I always wanted to do.
Mhm.
One day, some people called and asked me to be on a show, and they said, we need a bio. And when I started typing up my bio, I said, my God, this is a pretty impressive resume. I'm a chaplain at a hospital here. I get a call from Hollywood, California, Prometheus Productions, from Ancient Aliens. I forget the producer's name. This is Reverend Carter. Yeah, we got your book here. Would you like to be on the show? So I said, yeah. So I do it once or twice a year, sometimes 3 times. But things started falling into place. You know, moved here from New York, marriage, the wheels came off my marriage, got divorced. You know, life goes, you got to live.
Mhm.
Got a daughter, still friends with my ex. They live about 30 or 20 minutes from me. And then I'm starting to get some attention. So then I had a dream one night. I thought it was a dream. It may not have been a dream, because everything was in my house the same way it is now. And then someone told me, another experiencer said, if you have a dream and everything in your house is exactly the same way as in real time, that's not a dream. They probably did some. And I saw this person, an Arcturian.
Okay.
Edgar Casey talked about the Arcturians. Big head, light blue. They didn't have that thing right there. The artist who made this for me took the liberty of putting it there. But yeah,
Okay.
in my bedroom. And they always dissolve. They dissolve, not like Star Trek Beam Me Up, but the molecules. There's something that they just disperse, and they're not there.
Is that how they show up as well?
You know what? When they show up, I never saw them show up like that. That's what freaks me out to this day. I could do like this,
They're
and
there.
they're there.
Yeah.
That gives your heart that extra jolt.
Right.
But I noticed that these beings, okay, so I'm going to skip a little.
Yeah.
July 4th, 2013, 9:50 p.m. That's when he came.
Oh, okay.
Humanoid. Had a different haircut, had a hoodie on, not a hoodie, cowl,
Yeah.
page boy haircut. You can't see, built like that reptilian.
Okay.
I always joke, I say, I don't know, maybe there's a gym on their ship, because nobody's built like that naturally. I don't know, but I've never seen people built like that. Not even at the gym. And I'm thin. I don't even lift weights. I swim. July 4th, backstory, and then I'll close with when I met this person, the praying mantis. So it was powerful. It was like it was a hard time in my life. My dad was dying. It's like a blues song. It's like country western. My dad was dying. I was getting fired from my job, and I was getting divorced. And I had a blood clot. No history of blood clot in my family. I don't know whether it was stress. My right leg I was like LeBron James. I wish I was built like that. I thought I had pulled a muscle. For 3 or 4 days, it was so painful that if I put a piece of paper on my leg, my ex-wife in New York said, you didn't listen to me when you were here. You need to go to a doctor. You're not supposed to be, that's not a pulled muscle. I didn't go. I told her I wasn't going to go. But when we hung up, it was just so bad.
Yeah.
I go to the doctor, and the doctor says, "Did you drive here by yourself? Do you need a lift?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You need to leave now. Can you drive?" I said, "Yeah." And so I had to go to get an MRI. And he said, "This is very serious." And he said, because it was from my right ankle up to the groin area. And he said, "If it bursts," I said, "I'm going to have a bad day." He said, "Very bad. Go." So I go. They do all that. It's a blood clot. They give me something called Coumadin, but they gave me something called enoxaparin. They gave me the syringe every day, twice a day. I had to inject myself in my stomach to thin the blood. So that's the backstory. July 4th. That's when Blondie came. I would try to be a good father. And my second ex, and my daughter, they love fireworks. I cannot stand fireworks. And so we go every year. You get there at 7 o'clock, you find a parking space. It doesn't start till 9:30. So you're sitting out there for 2.5 hours. You're sitting in this little park. People are so close to you, you feel like you need a lubricant. Bugs, babies crying. I hated it, but I did it. But the God smiled on me, because July 4th, 2013, heavy thunderstorms. Heavy thunderstorms. I have a lot of friends who fought in Vietnam. Some of them talk about it, some of them don't. But they would tell me about being in the foxhole and artillery going in and out, going to sleep in your foxhole. Sometimes it was mud. You just did it. They were talking about war. It was, I don't know how we could do that to each other. But that night, 10 minutes to 10, it was so much thunder and lightning that it sounded like artillery. And I remember thinking, my last thoughts before the blonde brother came, because I couldn't sleep. I said, this is what they were talking about. This sounds like this is artillery. I turned around again. I don't know if my senses, and he was there. He was as tall as my ceiling. You could see the muscles of his torso through the cowl. He had a rope belt. It was up over his head. And I just looked at him. He stuck his hand out, and an apple green light hit me in my stomach. Because when I turned around, I was like, I didn't feel it, but I knew it hit me in the stomach. Because I remember my brain saying, "Oh my God," but I didn't feel anything. And he just dissolved. Like all his molecules just dispersed. One thing that happens after all these visits is your energy's up. I felt like, for several days. Days. I don't need to sleep. I'm hyped. First person I called was Preston Dennett. Do you know Preston?
No.
You may want to have him on a show. Preston is a prolific, he writes prolifically. He writes on all these topics. He's in California. He wrote a book on UFO healings, people who have been healed. So when I looked down at my leg, it was healed. There was no more swelling. So I called Preston. It was 10 minutes to 10, 10 minutes to 7 in California. He didn't pick up. It was early. I was fidgety. I didn't know what to do. The next day, I didn't, that's what flip phones were out, so I didn't have the camera to do. So I called my girlfriend, my ex-wife, and I went to see them. And they said almost at the same time, "My God, they healed your leg." They were like, it was almost like it was choreographed. I said, "Yeah." I had gotten in touch with Preston. As a matter of fact, he has 2 books out on UFO healings. I'm in the second one. I highly recommend both of them to you.
Cool. Yeah. Send me his info
I
later on.
will. Yeah, Preston Dennett. So here was the clincher. I had to go to the doctor, and they asked me what happened so quickly. And I wasn't going to tell them what I'm telling you. They'd have locked me up.
Yeah.
And they were like, it was like they wouldn't let up. They would not. But you were just here 10 days ago. We just stuck your finger 10 days ago because I had to go every 10 days and they checked the blood levels. And your leg was swollen. I said, maybe the medicine worked. Not that quickly, Mr. Carter. I don't know. But you must know. What? So after about 5-7 minutes of that, I just said, I don't know what happened. You don't know what happened. Are you happy? Are you happy that I'm well? And they got defensive. Well, of course we're happy. We're just trying to, I said, let's just put it down as we don't know.
Yeah.
Let's not keep going back and forth with this. And I said, please take me off the medication because they wanted me to stay on the Coumadin indefinitely. And I didn't want to do that. It still screwed me up. My circulation has never been the same. So that was that. And last but not least, this was in 2019. I had just come from doing a conference in Knoxville, Tennessee. I drove there 2 hours. And there was some heavyweights there. Travis was there, Travis Walton, Stanton Friedman was still alive then, Kathleen Martin, Steve Bassett was there. You know, we were there. And I remember it for 2 reasons. One, because of that, but also because I got a standing ovation. I never got a standing ovation before.
Hmm.
I also met a person from the government intelligence there, which was very interesting.
From the U.S. Intelligence?
U.S. intelligence. Yeah, it was a woman, Steve Bassett's mother was there, and Steve introduced me to his mom. And she had a woman with her, and she said, this is my friend. And she said, she's with U.S. intelligence. And she said, well, I'm retired. I said, that's like retiring from the mafia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she didn't laugh. And she said, anyway, I enjoyed your talk, Reverend Carter. And I just tried to make light of it. I said, thank you. I said, do you have a file on me? Did you bring a file? And she was like, if looks could kill, no humor at all.
Did you get the sense that she was like, I mean, okay, she says she's retired, but do you think that she was just there for fun, or was there some kind of official?
I think they go to these gatherings to say how much information is being leaked and what are people saying. I think that's part of her job.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, when I was talking about the spiritual side, I mean, you're up there for 2 hours. I have my slides and all that. But when I get to the spiritual part, because the last half hour of my talks, I leave room for that, and then we have Q&A, and you could hear a pin drop. And when I finished, they stood up, and I was like, well, I've never had that. I've had it at church, and that's what let me know I'm on the right track. People want to know. Yes, I've seen these people, or I know about propulsion systems, or I saw lights in the sky, but they want to know, how do I deal with my difficult neighbor? I got to go to work tomorrow. How do I deal with all this stuff that's going on in the world? Because you got to incorporate it.
Yeah.
I left a lot of friends in New York because this is all they could talk about. They couldn't talk about anything else. And you got to live your life too. So anyway, I met some people there. They bought my books, and they were, you know how it is. You give your number and we'll stay in touch, maybe, maybe not. But there was one woman who, she had people buy my book. She bragged about me. We wound up having a big argument months later, so we're not in touch. And anyway, she said, I have a friend who wasn't there, but I want you to meet her. She has something to tell you. I said, do I know her? She said, no, I don't think so. So I said, okay, what does she do? She says she's a psychic and she's a lawyer. I said, that's an interesting combination. I didn't ask her what, discipline of jurisprudence she.
That could come in real handy in that profession.
I have never seen that combination.
Yeah.
So anyway, he said, oh, Michael, I wished I was there. I heard it was wonderful. Da, 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 da. And she said, I have something to tell you. And I said, okay. She said, I hope you don't think I'm weird. She said, but when I picked up the energy, when she was telling me about you, I just saw praying mantis. I said, what? She said, yeah. She said, I sense that there's praying mantis energy around you. So, I mean, what are you going to say to that, Ken?
Yeah.
I said, okay. And she said, okay. She said, but I got a feeling you're going to. Now, I've never seen praying mantis, except this one time. She said, I said, okay. I said, if it happens, I'll let you know.
Sorry, she's telling you this before you saw him.
Yeah. She said, okay. And she said, in 3 days, I think you're going to see one.
Oh, wow.
I said, 3 days. She said, yeah. Okay. So I don't think much of it. The first night, I'm walking around the apartment, regular night.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not thinking, well, maybe is this auto suggestion? The second night, I noticed that when I walk from room to room, I'm starting to get a little chill. The only time I usually get that is like my brother was murdered back in '95. Someone robbed him and killed him. And sometimes he would be around me. He was shot. And because I can tell, because he smoked cigarettes, and there'll be a cigarette smoke in my house. And I don't smoke. So I said, well, Kevin, is that you? But I didn't smell any cigarette smoke. It was just weird. So I said, this is now the third night. I'm too lazy to come out here and meditate. So I say I'm going to lay on my bed and meditate. I put a tape on.
Yeah.
And about 3 minutes into the meditation, my bed goes down, my mattress goes down, scares me. And when I open my eyes, who is looking down at me?
Wow. Okay, can you rotate that guy a little bit? Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. Almost looks like a dinosaur in a way.
Yeah, or some type of insect. Well, praying mantis is.
Yeah.
And had on a robe. And the only energy I I got from him was very, 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 very mental, like very clear. Like I was clear. And then it dissolved. And I called and said, tell your friend that they were right.
Yeah.
That was in 2019, and I haven't had really a visit since then. I'm talking about a visit that it's no equivocation that they're in my room, they touch me, that kind of thing. So it's been a couple years now.
Okay. So that's what, 5 or 6 different species?
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5 different species. So 5 different species have come to see you.
Yes.
Over the span
since 1989.
Okay. Some of them for weeks on end, every 2 weeks.
At the beginning, they would come twice a month. Okay. At the beginning, but that's 1989 into 1990.
Right.
Then there would be times when I didn't see them.
And then it seems like there's definitely been an effect certainly on your psyche, your way of thinking, your lifestyle, that kind of thing. And you did mention that they had at times shown you pictures. Do you think that overall they were there to tell you something, and it's just like sort of a subtle thing that you can't necessarily put into words? or was there some other reason?
I just think that they were saying to me, you have potential and you are squandering it. I never got a thing where this is what you need to do, because there's free will to a degree, you know, but I just noticed that my whole focus of my life had changed.
Mm.
You know, I was an actor in New York. There's a lot of ambition there. There's a lot of self-absorption there. There's a lot of ego there.
Yeah.
And not saying that that's wrong. It just wasn't for me. I wasn't fulfilled. And remember, before they came, I was already on this path of not being fulfilled, but I was studying, I was reading Eastern thought, I was reading metaphysics, I was reading the so-called occult, I was reading existential Sartre and Camus, and, you know, I was getting an education.
Right. So it seems possible to me, I'll just say a plausible interpretation about like why they may be doing this and sort of selected you to contact is that I mean, who knows why the first time, but after that they seemed to me it seems like you kind of present yourself as an open-minded vessel in a way, in terms of receiving this message, that, hey guys, we're real. So maybe that's part of it, is just to show that they're actually real and they're actually here, and that this kind of thing can happen, and that also that it's not necessarily something that we need to fear, or that we can, even though it is a scary thing, that we can get over our fear, and we can embrace the whole reality.
Well, two things, and you hit both of them spot on. The first thing, the biggest lesson for me was fear, because after working through fear, because after several years of this, I started to say to myself, outside of that one incident with the syringe, these people never hurt you. They may look bizarre. They may come in your house at inopportune times. They may scare the you-know-what. But look how your life has changed. And so it made me look at, okay, where else in your life, Michael, do you let fear get in the way? Because okay, now, I'm always reluctant to say this, but I have been saying it lately on the last couple interviews, because I don't want it to come off as if I'm somehow chosen or different, because I say this to people, I'm not different in any way. I don't carry myself that way. I don't believe that. I've had these experiences. Doesn't make me better. Maybe you've had other experiences. When this started happening, I kept it close to the vest. There were maybe 2 or 3 people who knew. I had a good friend named Michael Gene Ashley. He was a very gifted psychic. And he didn't know he had this gift until he took a workshop called the Silver Method. It was Silver Mind Control, self-hypnosis.
Right. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. And this guy, he could have worked for the government. I don't mean that like he was undercover, but I still listen. Some of the stuff he told me back in the early 90s are happening now. Very humble guy, but he was a pure clairvoyant. He would just see the pictures and show you. He lived in Harlem up on 145th. Actually, he lived on 147, but you get off the 145th Street stop. And I went to his house. He was an actor like I was. We became friends. And when I came in his house, Ken, he said to me, you know, gave me a big hug. And he said, you know, glad to see you. Did you have trouble getting up here? Da, da, da. And he said, you know, Michael, when you come to my house, you should It was in January 1993. He said, you should let me know when you bring company with you. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, yeah, you did. I said, I didn't bring anybody here. He said, there's some people here. They look like, you could call them leprechauns. He said, but they have something to do with outer space stuff, quote unquote. And he said, they're in here now with you. I see them. And he made light of it. And as we talked, and I brought that up, we talked about various subjects. And he said, I said, you know, I haven't been sleeping well. I'm a little scared. This has been going on since 1989. He said, A, you have nothing to fear from these people. They're your friends. B, you know them. You've had lifetimes with them. He said, you know them in Atlantis. You know them in Egypt. He said that you were kind of singled out at birth. He said that, and you're needed on this particular planet at this particular time. He said, and you really have nothing to fear from these people. Now, I had never mentioned this to him. And so he did mention something that's really, I'll keep to myself, because it was like a karmic thing. And I don't know for sure, but I think it had something to do with them. And I think it had something to do with either me. It hasn't become clear yet, and this is to 93. He said, I'm just going to let you figure it out as you go on. But it's he said it's something like when someone puts a spell on someone and only that same person can take the spell off of them.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking that maybe people were like me and they were having these experiences back when, and I ridiculed them. I kept it secret. I'm thinking that that may have something to do with what I'm doing now, because I had to go through a lot of ridicule and stuff at the beginning. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's fascinating to me, because I like to always try to find the parallels between different paradigms, I guess you could say, and pick out the good things, because, you know, you talk about eating the meat and spitting out the bones.
Yes.
And I think that's really important to do. And in any model that we have, or any worldview or perception paradigm, it's full of all kinds of problems and misinformation and holes and gaps. But also there's a bit of truth in every one of these things. And so when I hear you talking about that last those last couple of points you brought up, it really resonates with the sort of the Christian concepts of, now, when I say these things, they're already going to give people the wrong idea, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit. But there's concepts like predestination, or, you know, where almost fate, I guess, is like, if you go back to the Greeks. And so we like to think that, you know, God has a wonderful plan for your life, and it's true in terms of, well, maybe God might not look like we think he looks like and act like we think he acts like, but there is something that is sort of your destiny in a way. And even if you don't have any kind of belief in any kind of higher consciousness, I think a lot of people still can connect to this idea that there is something that each of us has a specific thing that we need to be doing. And because that's the way we're designed, or if you don't believe in intelligent design, it still works. It's just the way you are. And you've got to resonate with your own spirit and your own body and your own whatever it is that makes you you. And so we need to, I think it becomes problematic when we don't align our lifestyle and our actions and our choices and our decisions with, you know, that kind of thing. I hate to use the word supposed to, but it kind of works.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I was having a conversation similarly to with someone the other day. It was a group of people. We were talking, and I was just saying, no one's going to tell you what to do. But it's when the universe calls you, God, the universe, multiverse, whatever the force, whatever you want to call it, and you are chosen to do something, and you don't do it, no one's going to make you do it, but you will never be at peace until you do the thing you're here to do. You'll
Right.
never be at peace.
Right.
And
And I think that's really that's I think the core seed of the story in behind so much of the science fiction that we probably all know and love. So even the Matrix, Luke
yes,
Skywalker, these guys, Neo and Luke, are both these guys with destiny. And
yeah,
really, so are you. Like, and so are every one of our viewers. You are Luke Skywalker, you are Neo, you have a story where you're the main person in the story. And what is that story about, and what that story is going to be, how is that's going to work out and come to fruition, is really, I guess that's, to me, what spirituality is that
yes.
you can do it, and it's going to be awesome.
Well, I think you're right. I think that's what Joseph Campbell talks about, follow your bliss.
Mhm.
When you're on a journey and it looks like your goal is getting further and further away, you realize that the journey is the goal.
Right.
And we all have it. And we just have to say yes to it. And
Yeah.
if you don't say yes to it now, it's okay, but eventually you're going to have to, because you'll
Yeah.
never be really at peace. And so I can say this, I worked hard, but I give them credit. Outside of the birth of my daughter, this is the most transformational thing that has happened in my life, and I'm in a good place. I feel like I'm doing what I'm here to do. I got a wonderful daughter, I got a wonderful partner, and she and I are trying to walk this journey together. And so I feel very fortunate and blessed, and I just stay gratitude. That's half the journey. I'm just thankful.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm glad we got a
That's,
chance to talk.
yeah, that's awesome. Well, this seems like a good place to wrap it up. So I want to thank you for coming
Sure.
and being on the show today. Excellent, excellent to hear you tell your story, and I hope that it will be encouraging for viewers and listeners. And actually, I'll just say too, if anybody's watching this video and you have a story that you need to tell, and if you think that I'm part of your healing journey, then reach out to me and let's tell your story together. And yeah, thanks, Michael, for coming on the show, and all the best to you. God bless.
You too, brother. God bless and Godspeed.
Yeah, so please check out Michael's books. Here's a link right here, and we'll see you guys next time.